think we will start right off with some community reports from some of our. I do not see anyone here for the fire department. Any fire department representative here with us?
Ooh, they might be, and I just don't recognize the name, so give me one moment. Sorry, y'all. I'm gonna stop sharing for just a minute here.
Okay.
All right, anyone from the fire department here, if you could unmute, you should be able to. Not seeing anyone unmute. They could have been called away to an emergency.
Okay, yeah, got more important things to do possibly. Okay, well, I know Detective Oliver is here. Why don't we turn some time over to you to give us a little report from the police department?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, very well.
All right. First, are there any questions, concerns, or anything you're seeing in your neighborhood that you want to talk about police department right now? Okay. Well, we can always answer questions throughout this. So I just want to start with a couple of, we finally got our 2021 numbers, and I just want to go over that annual summary real quick. So the police department had 239,002 calls for 2021. There were over 55,000 reports generated. There were 5,000 bookings that took place. So 5,000 people that were taken to jail over that last year. There were 1,700 misdemeanor citations. There were 5,251 traffic citations, and there were 1,158 street checks that occurred over 2021. For the 5-year average, all those numbers are actually down except for our calls. We saw a 15% increase for calls for service, and so pretty much the calls for service went up 15%. Everything else was down, which is pretty good considering coming out of a COVID, the pandemic, and everything that happened at that place. For 2021, we had 294 guns that were stolen. That's a 24% increase over the last 3 years. Of those stolen, not necessarily just that year, we recovered only 50. And we did seize over 460 guns in 2021, which is concerning because that's when we seize a gun, it's not just for something that's not something that's big. So a gun seizure is a good sign, but that's a lot of guns seized. For homicides for 2021, we did see 18 homicides in Salt Lake City. The weapons that were used during these homicides, there were 11 guns during the homicide, 1 knife, 2 motor vehicles, 1 blunt object, and then 3 of the homicides were with an unknown or other item. So 61% of the homicides occurred on the weekdays, meaning Saturday and Sunday. So more than half of our homicides last year occurred on Saturday and Sunday. We also had we had during 2021 2,134 motor vehicles that were reported stolen in Salt Lake City. The top 5 models of those motor vehicles were the Honda Civic, the Honda Accord, the Ford F-150, the Honda CR-V, and the Ford F-250. Those are our top 5 vehicles that are stolen from the city in 2021. Are any questions, any concerns up to this point?
Could that because those automobiles are just more common or just have a higher resale value?
More prevalent, actually, and in the older models, you were able to shave keys and do things with those older model Hondas. That was just, one key could get you into 4 or 5 or 6 or how many different Hondas that you could get into. So that's one of the reasons that we saw. Of course, the Honda is okay. Like the number 1 stolen. Yeah. For District 1.
I think Terry's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
I'm a motorcyclist. So any report on stolen motorcycles in the city?
That's a good question. Let me see if any of my statistics have that. Usually it is reported as a motor vehicle theft, and they don't necessarily differentiate unless you have to go and look at the reports. So my guess is there are some in there, and I'd have to pull those out for next time that we meet, if that's okay.
Yep,
So yeah, there are motor vehicles. So when it comes to the motor vehicle theft itself, stolen vehicles, that does include motorcycles, trucks, cars, motorhomes, RVs, anything like that. So good point. For and this is again 2021, we saw a 200% increase in homicides in District 1. So we only had one homicide in 2020. We saw 3 last year. So that's not an increase. That's a bad increase. So that's something we've had to really try and figure out what's going on there. We did see a 25% decrease in robberies over 2021, a 24% decrease in a 17% decrease in aggravated assaults. So those are good signs as long as they're going down. 5-year average, though, we're still up 12% in aggravated assaults and domestic violence aggravated assaults, and 29% in non-family aggravated assaults. So our violent crimes over 5 years is up 32%, which is pretty. And that's something that's not a good increase for violent crimes over 5 years. In 2021, so last year we saw 1,767 comp stat, or so that's property crimes and violent crimes together. So that's an increase of 9%. Any questions on those? Concerns? Anything that's happening in the neighborhood? All right, let me grab my phone because my phone has one more statistics. So the new report that we just got is calls and offenses that are recorded at the Ramada Temporary Shelter. So this is the only month that we've had available so far, is February, since that's when it was fully open. So we've had 6 theft investigations in February, 5 calls for trespassers, 5 calls for unwanted people at Ramada, and 4 agency assists, meaning fire or someone needs police to stand by. And then we've had 2 fights in progress. Like I said, these are really new numbers since it's a brand new facility. But we did, believe it or not, it's a decrease from when it was the Ramada Inn motel or hotel as compared to what it is right now for the overflow shelter. And that's kind of interesting to me, but that we have seen a pretty good decrease. For example, 2021, when it was the motel, we had 21 total one or part 1 offenses. Those are our violent crimes. And this year we've only had 14 in January, 21 in February, and then we did go up by 1 this year, 22. So we are seeing some cases in the Ramada. Fortunately, those are down from before. And we'll continue to see those until probably April. We'll see how it averages out and how the numbers come in once we're done in April. That's pretty much
could it be that the residents there at the Ramada right now are a little less mobile than the general population? I understood it was mostly for individuals that had medical issues or something.
Yes, that was I think phase 3 is open for an overflow shelter now. But yeah, originally it was just the those that were struggling to get around. It was open for them. I don't know. I think it's been 3 weeks maybe that it's been open for, maybe 2 weeks for the overflow shelter itself for anyone that needs it. So
Okay.
we'll get those numbers probably in the next month or so, just to see how those compare.
Yeah, that's an interesting statistic there. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much longer is the Ramada Inn supposed to be open until when?
There might be more people on this meeting that will have an exact date, but I'm hearing April. I think April, mid-April is when it will be open until. I could be wrong, but yep, that's what I think I've heard.
Detective, just one fast observation. I did go to lunch yesterday at the Star of India, and one of the food is great.
Yep, it is good.
Lots of parking. There's a lot more parking over there than there ever was before. And I thought it was amazingly quiet. I mean, I didn't, in terms of the number of people that were around, and yeah, it wasn't what I expected.
Well, that's great. First of all, that Indian restaurant there is fantastic. So yeah, I recommend it. And I mean, you're going to have a lot of security in there. You've got inside security, private security, and then you have different agencies that are providing the security on the outside. So right now, it's a pretty secure place to go and eat. I highly recommend it. Yes, Terry, I see a hand.
Excuse me. Eldon, maybe in the future, motorcyclists are a pretty significant part of the community. There are 80,000 registered motorcycles in the state. And we tend to be a little marginalized. Things, we're a bunch of nutcases on bikes. But a couple of years ago was the highest number of deaths. So I'm wondering if you could ask whoever makes these reports to begin to segregate motorcycle thefts from just regular car thefts. Just gives us a little more visibility.
Yeah, I absolutely will. Because I'd actually like to see, especially during the summer, if the numbers stay the same during the summer as compared to winter. My feeling is that it's probably going to be higher in the summer months because the motorcycles are out on the road more, and they're available more. But yeah, that's absolutely something I can look and see if they can separate those numbers for us.
Okay.
That's
Thank-
all I have.
Thank you very much. Appreciate all the work that you do, and we are glad to have you with us. Josh
Thanks.
DeBoyo, time for report from the mayor's office.
Thank you, Lynn. Good evening, everyone. My name is Josh. I'm from the mayor's office. I don't have too much to update on today. I just wanted to share just a couple of links, a couple of opportunities, and information that might be useful for this time that we're in. Just a second here. I'm just putting them in the chat for everyone to see. So the first is, as always, there are positions on our boards in the city. Almost all of them are appointed through the mayor's office, except for a couple of them, including the mosquito abatement board. And there might be one other that I'm not recalling right now, but almost all of them just go through the mayor's office to be appointed. And there are a good number that still have vacancies. And so take a look through those. And then if you've applied and haven't heard back, feel free to give our office a call. I'll leave my contact info. Also, I've helped other people already in the past few weeks find out the status of their application to various boards. And so you were here for that. And next is our Know Your Neighbor program, which has been around for a little while, but it is a partnership between the Salt Lake City Mayor's Office of Equity and Inclusion and the State Refugee Services Office to connect volunteers in the community with refugees in Utah to assist them with various needs and just to create a welcoming environment. And there's always going to be a need for this. We know what is happening in Ukraine and what has happened in the past year in Afghanistan and in other places. There's increasing interest and I think among the community for opportunities to help people in need, especially that are newly arrived. And so there's openings for things like tutors, helping teach classes on citizenship skills, tech skills, various things. So take a look at that if you're interested. And then lastly, we've had a lot of snow over the past week, and then kind of heavy snow, and branches have broken. If there are branches broken and in need of pickup, large ones especially, on public trees, so those are the trees that are on the park strips, call Urban Forestry, and their number I just put right there, 801-535-7818. And so that they can have it on their list to get to and know they have a lot to get through. after the past few days. But if they're, again, this is for public trees on public property, so not front yards, just give them a call and they will get to it. And that is all I have right now. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have seen a few branches here and there on park strips, and I just assumed that the city would kind of make a sweep through the area.
Yeah, they do. And yeah, just if there's one that they might already have it on their list, but it's always okay if you want to call.
Sure, okay. Hey, thank you, Josh. Any other questions for Josh? I don't see anything. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's talk with Victoria. You get a chance to talk to us now, Victoria.
Hello, how are you all? It's good to see you. First, thank God we survived session. The Inland Port Bill, as I updated you all last time, did pass through. So while we did lose the vote on the board, and we are still hoping for a Supreme Court decision that will rectify that, we have gotten the increment, tax increment, returned to the city. The 10% that was originally allocated for the community land trust housing developments is included there. In addition, there's an extra 15% allocated from the increment specifically for West Side development projects as determined by the West Side city representatives. We are talking to the lawyers and everything about what that looks like. The next step is that the city will engage in contract negotiations with the Utah Inland Port Authority. I am meeting with stakeholders. Dita Seed and Stop the Polluting Port are my first stop to find out what are our non-negotiables. But I'll be talking to people from Utah State University through the Aspire program. I'm going to be talking to community members, anyone and everyone who has an opinion on this, please reach out to me. We want to make sure that as we go through these contract negotiations, that we are keeping the full faith and confidence of our constituents front and center. The nature of this contract is it'll be based around operations, setting expectations, and it will be something that we can hang our hat on more confidently than a legislative palette that can change with every time they call a special session. A contract offers us a longer term sustainability and predictability. Because we lost the vote, I have arranged a monthly standing meeting with the Utah Inland Port Authority representatives. I told them if I'm not allowed to vote, then I'm not going to wait for the vote to give them my feedback. I will be giving them my feedback as things are being shaped and shaping it with them. They are surprisingly open to that and really enthusiastic about it. So I will be working with them at least once a month on initiatives and developments, making sure that I'm understanding what's going on, able to give you all accurate information and advocate for us in really meaningful ways. That meeting start date is pending what the city lawyers tell me is appropriate, since we will be entering into contract negotiations with them. At the very latest, we have to have a contract between the Inland Port Authority and the city by January 2023. Otherwise, none of us get any of the tax increment money. It all gets locked up and everyone's really motivated by money. So I have full confidence that no later than January, it'll be done. The other bill that was really big, that was just shocking at the end of the session, was House Bill 440, which was a bill about dealing with homelessness. If you have ever called and complained to your mayor, I would ask that you call or write an email and thank her for advocacy on this. She did some battle for us. There were a few iterations of the bill that would have put our West Side and some of our West Side entities, particularly the fairgrounds, into some real peril. And she worked alongside the league, the Utah League of Cities and Towns, to develop a coalition among the other county mayors that just has not existed before. There's still a long road to go. The bill operates in two ways. It says the Council of Mayors, which are all the county mayors, have the opportunity to find a location for emergency shelters by September 1st. If this cannot be accomplished, the state will co-opt the activity and they will place it anywhere they deem fit on their properties, and they will preempt the local zoning laws to make it okay. And they're only pledging about a quarter of what it takes to run a shelter as they cite it there. The good news is if you end up having it placed in your neighborhood by default, because the state put it there, you will not be required to do it for another 3 years. So only once every 4 years will any municipality be responsible for it. It is very far from perfect, but it offers us a lot of protections we did not have before. And it forced some skin in the game for municipalities who have historically been able to turn a blind eye to it. And that in and of itself is just a progress that we can't deny. I am working right now and I'm asking for a systems analysis of homelessness services. We have providers who are multi-million dollars in debt. And that means either we're asking them to do something that's not sustainable, or there's a mishandling in the organization. I'm inclined not to think it's the organizations. I'm inclined to think that the way we have homelessness services set up is too onerous for what we're asking. But if that's the case, I want concrete data so that we can identify where the hole is and we can restore dignity to our neighbors who are unsheltered and security and predictability to our neighbors who are crumbling under the pressure of this homelessness crisis in their backyards. I'm optimistic that we'll get it done. Council office is very enthusiastic about this systems analysis. The mayor of Midvale and the mayor of South Salt Lake also stood shoulder to shoulder with us on this. And really, the other thing that happens if we don't cite things by September is that the resource centers have to flex the capacity up by 25%. That doesn't impact our community directly. It's districts 4 and 5 that house our resource centers. But that's still breaking faith with the people of Salt Lake. When we decentralized and created this scattered model, we said you won't have to deal with more than X number and it will go up. So that is very disappointing and frustrating. We're hopeful that we won't have to trigger that, but we haven't had a lot of success with the negotiation and getting people to actually do the things they say they want to do from other municipalities. Beyond that, I'm happy to entertain any questions about those two things from the state. We will be getting additional funds from a mitigation fund that will help us take care of some of the costs we shoulder by housing resource centers. But if anyone has any questions on the state things, I'm happy to entertain them. Okay, beyond that, redistricting has started. Eric Lopez, the former president of the Poplar Grove Community Council and resident of Rose Park, is going to represent District 1 as we go through the redistricting process. We have 3 total from the west side. Our district is only 500 people away from the ideal number according to redistricting. So I don't expect very large scale changes to our area. And you all are pretty securely District 1. I'm with you till death now, so I hope you like me. So redistricting is going on. If you want to give information about that, feedback about it, please do. I've also written a formal letter to the Utah Department of Transportation. I've told them that because of the changes to the legacy highway traffic, because they allow trucks now, and because we have an expected traffic increase due to inland port activity, that the sound wall that extends from 2100 north south through Westpointe Park must be a priority. So far, I've received positive feedback from them, and I'm hoping to engage them. ARPA dollars make people, more open to listening to these sorts of requests. But I'm happy to take feedback on that and direction as we need. I think that's all. We did just get District 1 spot on the Parks nature, the peanut board, it's parks, nature, urban trails. I can't remember. We just got that filled with one of the Rose Park baseball coaches. But if you're interested, let me know. I will push your name through on any board that you're interested. Mosquito abatement board appointments are coming. And Miss Dorothy, I made sure I am on the subcommittee. But I'm happy for any feedback on that as well. I think that's it from council side.
Wow, boy, thank you very much. Appreciate all your hard work for us. Great, thank you.
Also, if you see our Pioneer Precinct boys, give them a pat on the back and applaud them. They just got recognized today by the mayor for their amazing work. They just got an amazing cache of weapons out of Rose Park. They're amazing, and we're fortunate that they're our West Side boys.
Very good.
What happened to Luz's bill on the study, the health study? Did that fail?
I do believe it did. In the end, so many things that we thought were a given ended up failing because water took the day. Everyone is terrified about water, and climate change is no longer a partisan issue. They took them on helicopter rides over the Great Salt Lake, and there was a lot of fear over what's happening there. So a lot of those things like that ended up getting backburnered, and the appropriations went towards these water preservation standards. But as part of the increment returning to us, we are now in a position to do traffic study and to move the health and human impact, I'm not using the right word there. But both of those studies now with this contract become a much realer thing.
So the other thing you referred to, the lawsuit, are you saying there's another lawsuit for lack of representation, or is this the original mayor's lawsuit?
It's the original one. Both the state and the city wrote letters to the court asking them not to moot this, saying these negotiations do not moot the need for. And the crux of it now is that even though they've given the money back to the city, they're still telling us how we have to spend it. We have to remit 40% back to the Inland Port Authority, and that amount will diminish by 2% a year over 25 years. And then after that, by taking any amount of our money for Port Authority usage by mandate and refusing us a vote, that it is the deprivation of the civil process there.
Okay. The only other thing, and for everyone, there will be an editorial published from a member of the Stop the Polluting Port, counteracting the inland port's data on the truck train concept that they seem to be pushing, that trains will reduce pollution, etc. But this person did an incredible study and took many hours of reading. I think it's going to be in the Trib, maybe Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, very good.
Thank you. India just put in the chat that Senator Escamilla's bill did pass. Thank you, India.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Let's see, the next thing we've got talking about.
Can I just ask one quick question of the councilwoman?
Go ahead.
You mentioned that if there's not agreement on the contract by a certain date, that people would not get any of the money. Is that both the state Inland Port Authority won't get their money and the city won't get the money, or is it only the city that won't get money?
Neither party,
Okay.
neither the Port Authority nor the city.
Okay, thank you. Possibly Olivia will be talking to us about a thriving in place topic. Is that
I think it's Alexandria. Is that who we have? Sorry, let me get this.
I didn't see Alexandria on the list.
Yeah, do we have anyone here from the U of U Student West Side Studio?
Did you want to talk? You just talk and let them know what she said to you.
Oh, wait, oh,
I didn't get a hold of her. I didn't have a way to get a hold of her.
Did you? What about Ivis? Did she say anything?
Oh, I didn't call Ivis. So I don't
Okay.
know why she didn't come, because she canceled. She told me she would come last month and then she canceled. So I thought she would just come this month.
okay, very good. Sorry to scare you, Olivia. You're down the road a little bit. So, yeah, I saw a table set up at the Riverside Library a while ago. Feel like asking people to fill out this questionnaire and see what they thought of the neighborhood and the concept of this gentrification where people are moving away from our area. We'll talk about that in the future if they want to come and talk with us. Let's Swanner property development. I think Allison could maybe give us a little wordage on that.
Yeah, not too much to update. We are in contact with Scannell Properties, hoping to get a meeting with local residents and property owners in the area on the schedule prior to the Planning Commission meeting on March 23rd. So Patrick's been in contact with us. We're hoping for maybe something next week, but he's going to get back to us after they've heard back, I think, from an environmental consultant so that they have more info for us. So that's where we're at with that.
Hey, very good. Get some interaction there. That's good. Any other questions on that topic from anybody? Okay, why don't we spend some time on our major presentation today, talking about the North Point master plan.
Thank you. I am Olivia. I'm also joined by my coworker Megan, but she is also listed as Olivia, it looks like. So there's two of me tonight. Thank you so much for having us to your meeting to give a quick update on where we're at in the process and what's coming up and what we've been working on. I'm excited to show you guys what we've got in the works. I know we presented to this council before, but it was before the holidays, I think in the fall. So it's been a while. I've got a presentation to share with you guys tonight. Oh, it says the host has disabled participant screen sharing.
Oh, that would be helpful. Let me fix that for you, Olivia. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm going to give both Olivia's screen sharing access. So let's see here. Okay, so you should be able to share now. Sorry about that.
No worries. Let me try again here. Okay, yes, I have access. Okay, great. So like I said, we have come to one of these meetings before to present and kind of give an update, but I know it's been a while and I see some names and faces that I haven't heard from yet. So we're going to kind of run through what we're doing, what this project is, what the process has been to date, and what we've heard so far from our outreach. Then I'll kind of cover some key highlights from our existing conditions report we've been working on and get into kind of the constraints and opportunities for the area. So first, we want to talk about what is this plan. And this project boundary is a little bit larger than it should be, but it should just follow up 3200 West and then over the top of that. I can't remember what road that is running east-west above 3300 North, but just right above there. So there was a previous master plan for this area done by Salt Lake City, adopted in 2000, which, if you can believe it, was 22 years ago. So it is time to reimagine what we want to do with the area and how we want to protect it, how we want to develop it, what kind of things we need to be putting in place. So we hope to address the increasing development pressure, especially along 2200 West, address increasing interest in annexations. There's a lot of county land that is in the talks of annexing either to Salt Lake or to North Salt Lake, and just balancing some competing values in the area. We've touched on a few of them already tonight, but some of those major competing values are protecting the international airport, preserving agricultural land and critical wildlife habitat, and recognizing the property rights of private and public property owners. So that's kind of what we're doing here. And I'm gonna keep moving on and talk about process. So if you have any questions, if I'm moving too quick through any of this, just raise your hand and I will slow down and answer some questions here. But otherwise, I'll ask for some questions at the end. Our project timeline, we kicked it off last summer we did one-on-one interviews with property owners asking what their values are in the area, what's most important to them moving forward. We kind of went through and evaluated all of the existing conditions in the area. And I'll talk a little bit about that report that came out of that. So now we're in this middle phase where we're taking that information and working with the steering committee to develop a few different concepts for the area. We will be bringing those to public workshops probably in April. And so keep an eye out for that. But we are basically coming up with several different land use concepts, different tools the city and county can use to preserve that land or mitigate impact to critical habitat, or maybe promote the type of development that they want to see in the area. And once we've kind of workshopped those concepts with the public, we will turn it into a draft plan with recommendations and regulations and all of those things for the city to follow if and when new development occurs in the area. So we're aiming for adoption by May. Outreach opportunities. There were a few. We've been to one of the council updates for Westpointe already. We attended Westpointe Night Out last August. We've been doing one-on-one interviews and surveys. And coming up, we will have these small group roundtables to kind of workshop together on the plan. And this, I think the city has been posting about these opportunities, and you can find them on the city website as well. Okay, so in this outreach that we've done to date, some common themes emerged. These are the things that we heard over and over. They seem to really be at the top of a lot of people's minds when it comes to the North Point area. One of the most common things we heard was to focus on conservation first. And that includes wetland habitat, wildlife protection, mostly on migratory birds, but there are a lot of different species that rely on the habitat directly adjacent to the project area. Water quality and quantity, like I heard mentioned earlier tonight, top of everyone's mind lately. And the existing agriculture and heritage that is tied to. Other things we heard were to keep development as far east as possible seems to be the preference of a lot of people, just to buffer that wetland to the west as much as we can. Improving circulation and roadways along 2200 West, and increasing access to community services for residents, like snow removal, recreation, garbage removal, I had heard was an issue as well. So those are kind of our key points that we heard over and over reaching out to residents within this area. So our next step here was to dive into the existing conditions, what's going on in the area, kind of through the lens of what we've heard so far. So we broke these existing conditions into 3 main categories. The first
that all
one
here?
is,
That's the report.
That's the report.
sorry, was there a question?
No, just an open mic.
Oh, okay. I'll keep on going. For the first section here was natural environment. And then we did our built environment. And then we focused on our community, the demographics. So this entire report is available on the city website, and I'll post the link to the chat in just a little bit here. I encourage you all to go check it out. Certainly a lot of work and attention to detail went into it, but it's also, it's really interesting to read about what's going on in the area, and it really sets the stage for any workshops coming up. So kind of the highlights from the natural environment. Some of the highlights are that the project area, unsurprisingly, is surrounded by wetlands and floodplain. None of the wetlands, minus the Jordan River and some canals, directly cross over into the project area, except for Playa wetland. So they are, they're kind of areas that turn into wetlands after heavy rain, pretty much. But they are crucial habitat for migratory bird species. And you can see in this map on the left here, that yellowish brown color is where those playas are. Another highlight about the natural environment is that roughly 338 different bird species call this area home, which is absolutely incredible. This includes bald eagles, so that is really exciting. It's definitely a hotspot for bird habitat. And another environmental highlight is that the soil in this area has a high water table, which can impact and affect development. Okay, some highlights for the built environment. I know that this is a frequent topic you guys are probably hearing about in a few different meetings, but I heard the Swanner subdivision mentioned. We've got a few different projects in the works in this area. The Utah Inland Port Authority actually creeps to our North Point boundary just on the southeastern leg. There's a proposed annexation up on the northeast, and then the Swanner subdivision on the western side. The area is almost entirely zoned for agricultural, rural residential, or industrial business park. Mostly business park. And also a built environment highlight is that 2200 West is experiencing higher traffic volumes, and new development in the area might require additional roadways to alleviate some of that traffic. Okay, and finally, the last major section of our existing conditions report was all about the community. So people live in this area, and people live directly adjacent to the area and are heavily impacted by it. According to our data we can find, there are roughly 140 people living within the project area itself. The project area falls within City Council District Number 1, which has the largest share of Hispanic and Latino population in Salt Lake City at 48% of the population within the council district. And roughly 105 people are employed within the project area. So that means the daytime population, that affects the daytime population. There's people there during the day, although people live there and leave for work. There are still people living elsewhere and coming in for work. And another highlight here is that many of the amenities, such as schools, parks, libraries, those kinds of things are separated from the residents living within the project area by major boundaries like I-215 and the Jordan River. And that is it for existing conditions. Again, if you are interested in learning a little bit more about the area or digging a little deeper into any of these data points and many others, I'll drop the link to where you can find the full report on the city's website in just a moment here. Okay, so our next one here, and I always think that this is a really interesting, I always think this is an interesting exercise. One of our important things to do in these scenarios are to look at what are our major constraints in the area for development and where are there opportunities for development. So I've got a map of constraints and a map of opportunities, and then a heat map kind of combining the two. We'll look at constraints first. So a lot of these are pretty obvious. Wetlands are a big development constraint. Properties owned by the airport are less likely to develop. Easements, I think that these are power line easements, can't develop over those. Airport influence zones, there's two different ones. You can see they're different colors. They've got different rules and regulations related to height and some extra development you need to do to make sure your buildings are muffled from the sound. And noise contours, you can see right next to that. That is kind of a similar thing there. You don't want to build residential right in the middle of a noise corridor, and anything else you build in the noise corridor, you want to make sure is buffered from that sound. And then also prime agricultural soil is less desirable to be developed. So when you add all of those constraints together, you get kind of a heat map like you see on the right, where the darker the color, the more of these constraints intersect. Okay. Dorothy, are you trying to say something? Oh, okay. Okay, so here are just a few, I won't go over all of these. I know they can get kind of jargony, but these are a few different policies from different plans or city development code related to those constraints, kind of covering why are these areas less likely or less desirable to develop. There's a desire to maintain 37% agriculture within the project boundary, according to the original North Point plan. That might be something that changes in 2022, it might not. Airport is a constraint because height restrictions, height may be restricted to 65 feet. Some uses are prohibited in different airport zones. Few different constraints there. And then wetlands, obviously water is a huge concern, and preserving the Great Salt Lake is a huge concern. We already heard that a little bit earlier tonight. But there are also in Plan Salt Lake, the Northwest Quadrant Plan, a few adopted by Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County that specifically call out the desire to preserve these natural open spaces and these critical habitats, and kind of do what it takes to just preserve the integrity of those areas. So those are our constraints that we're working with here. But there's also some things that make the area more desirable for development, such as close proximity to existing services, existing roads, existing sewer is a big one. Parcels that are underutilized, meaning the assessor's data is showing that the buildings on the property are worth less than the land that they sit on. Property that's vacant is an opportunity for development. large parcels are typically more desirable for development because you can subdivide them, and access to transportation because you're not having to add new roads when you build. So when you add up all of those opportunities together, you get the map on the right. So you can see these darker shades of green where there's more opportunities than not. And putting those two together, you get this, which is kind of a lot to look at. But it has, the red is obviously less desirable for development, and the darker green is more desirable for development. So you can see there's kind of some darker red areas on the west and in the middle here, some kind of to the south, obviously along any canals or wetlands. And it's a little bit more green and more prone for development, mostly to the east and definitely south and east, where there's already a little bit of existing development. I know that was kind of a lot to go through, so I want to pause here and make sure there's no questions or comments on these. Terry, I see your hand up. Oh, but you're muted.
So a couple of things that are going on, the Suena property, the inland port, will be based on diesel trucks, et cetera, particularly the Suena property, with immense amounts of diesel emission inputs. And I'm not seeing how those developments around and within are going to affect air quality in the area. And then when you talk about opportunities, what opportunities do you talk about that would mitigate any kind of air quality impact? Because you may know, and it says in your original report that I saw, Salt Lake City suffers some of the worst air quality in the country. So to me, this looks like something's missing, and I guess I'm not quite getting it.
Right. Air quality is a really big issue in our project area and in the area overall. The reason it's not added to this map is pretty much that it would be one negative point across the entire map, across the entire boundary. So it would just be a little bit hard to show, but the air quality impact is a big conversation for sure. And it's one that, I know there's a lot of discussion over the air quality impacts that are arising from the water evaporating out of these wetlands in the Great Salt Lake, and exposing these particles in the salt and the sand and the dirt that are fine enough to get into our airways. And I know that that is a big topic of concern for air quality in the area. So you're getting it kind of from the east from that, west from major transportation, from the south from the airport, and certainly increasingly within the project boundary as new industrial development occurs. So rather than air quality being, trying to think of the right way to word this, rather than it being something that is shown on a map, air quality is going to be something that we are going to have to write policies to monitor, and policies to mitigate further pollution, if that makes sense.
No, I would disagree on all that, in that it's an important pollution input, probably the most pollution input to this area. Let me give you an example. The Suena property talks about 6 million square feet of industrial loading docks. And they gave some numbers, which I calculate out to 1,100 diesel trucks pulling in and out of there. And of course, there are 6 million feet is over time. But when you do the calculations on just that property and 1,100 diesel trucks coming in and out, it's an enormous pollution input. So to me, when I look at this, it's ignoring that whole thing, and the inland port is a whole new story, maybe 10 times Swainer property. So I would suggest as you move forward that some constraint, obviously, would be the developments that could occur here vis-a-vis the current air quality issues need to limit certain kinds of inputs to preserve the area's lifestyle and health. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that does make a lot of sense. I've got a note to look for a little bit further into that. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, I have a quick survey for you guys. Hopefully, oh, I can admit people to a room, should I?
You don't have to.
Oh. Okay, so I've got a quick survey for you guys. You should be able to access it quickly from your cell phone, your smartphone. If you turn on your camera and act like you're going to take a picture of the QR code, it should take you there. Or if you're on a computer or don't want to use a QR code, you can visit menti.com and enter this code. And I will pull it up here. So the code is up at the top. I think I will take it as well. Okay, so you should see an option to rank the importance of these things. And I'll give it just a minute here to make sure everyone can get to it. So you can see the more answers we're getting, the the more this is changing.
Olivia, we can only see the QR code. Do you see something else that we should see?
Oh, yes. I guess I have to reshare. Let me reshare. Thank you. Okay, can you guys see now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it looks like we've had about 7 people answer here. Give it just a sec. Okay. And it's not letting me go to the next one. Sorry, one sec. Okay, there we go. All right, we're going to move on to the next question here. So you should see a new question on your screen now. I think I control whether or not you see the next question. So you should be able to see it now. So our level of support for the following: tools that provide financial compensation to landowners for the preservation of natural land. These are tools that allow developers or landowners to still make the money that they would if they developed their land, but the city takes over that land with the conservation easement to kind of protect those wetlands, and continuation of existing land uses such as agriculture, habitat conservation, rural, residential, and wildlife. maybe there's a strong desire for that, and maybe there's a strong desire to see something new. And whether that's new development or complete conservation is kind of the next question. So. Okay. See about the same amount of responses as last question. So we'll move on to the last question here. This is a drag and drop ranking. Rank the following from most important at number 1 to least important, number 4, for the future of the North Point area. Critical habitat preservation, continued economic growth, increased services and utilities to those existing residents and business owners, and the preservation of existing agriculture. Uh-oh, kind of neck and neck there. Oh, good. Looks like critical habitat preservation is kind of at the top of the list. This is very similar to a survey we're sending out specifically to property owners in the area to kind of compare, what does the general public feel about this area and what do the people who own property in this area think, so that we can combine those answers where needed and separate them out where needed to kind of paint the full picture.
Hey, Olivia, question on that. When
Yeah.
you say property owners in the area, do you have an idea of like what those boundaries are? So, I mean, obviously, is it just everyone within the little box you showed us earlier, like any property owner within that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, honestly, to see those comparisons. So I live in the area.
Oh, great.
Right along 2200 West. And so I'm curious to see those comparisons, because I'll be honest with you that I think not a lot of people have been out to the area where I live, and they don't really know what it looks like out here, or like even that there's critical habitats in the area. So I'm really curious about those results, just knowing that folks don't even know that people live out here, let alone that there's other things. So
great. Well, I'm excited for you to see the results too. I'm excited as well. It's always interesting to compare people who appreciate the area and people who own property in the area. It's they're both important views. That it's interesting to see the difference or similarities that come out of that, though.
Yeah.
And then in addition to this very short survey, like I mentioned earlier, we will be bringing full concepts to in-person bigger workshops to really hash out details that are open to the public. So it's not the last chance for input here. Okay, and that was my last question on here. So thank you guys for being willing to answer those questions. I'll make sure I get the results of that over so you guys can check them out. Just share those with Dorothy, I guess. Dorothy, are you the right person to share those with?
yeah, you can share them with her or with me, Olivia. I think you have my email too.
That's right.
Allison is actually leading this effort for the board.
Okay, great. Allison, I'll send you the results of that.
How
thanks.
soon do you have to do the survey to be able to be in to have the input in there?
Well, this survey was just for the purposes of this meeting. So I was going to send the results over afterwards, after the meeting's done. The property owner survey, I think we haven't sent that out quite yet, but I think we're planning on leaving that out for about a month.
Excuse me, Olivia, but were you expecting us to be answering the survey as you were going through it now?
Yes.
Do you want me to go back? You
Could
can
everybody-
actually
well, I
still
think
go in and
ask-
answer them.
you need to ask people if everybody understood that, because there's two of us here and we didn't understand it.
Nope.
Should we run back through the 3 questions?
Well, what does everybody else think?
It looked like 9 people responded.
Oh,
Out of 21?
Yeah, it wasn't mandatory though, so I think the idea here, Olivia, could you potentially leave it open maybe through the next day or two, and then folks who want to can either go to menti.com or they can go to menti.com and enter that code in. Would that be okay?
Yes, absolutely. I
think that
will
would be
drop
better.
here's a QR or just a straight link to the
Perfect.
questionnaire. I think I need to change it so that you can see, so you can.
Oh yeah, because that goes to the one. It might not work because it's based on the slides, right? So that link goes straight to that
Right.
last slide.
I think I can change that right here. Okay, refresh and try again.
Yes, it worked.
Okay, great. So you should be able to answer at your own pace now without me letting you go to the next question. So I'll leave that up for a few days and let a few more responses roll through.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, let's see. So the last thing I have to talk to you guys about here is just next steps, what we've got coming up. And I know I have run through this a little bit already, but I just want to end on mainly my main point here is that this is not the kind of process where I'm handing you a 3-question quiz and we're going to build a plan and you'll see it at the end. This is something that we are working hard internally with a group of stakeholders on, and we're going to bring concepts back to you guys to workshop in small group sessions likely in April. And from those conversations, we will start drafting policies and put together a plan, which will also go through a formal adoption process with lots of opportunity for public input as well. So that's kind of what we've got coming up next here. And that's where we're at on the North Point project. Any final questions on what we're doing or how we're doing it?
what does that say?
I see Terry's hand up, but that might be from earlier.
Dorothy, did you have a question?
Well, I was gonna try. Could you talk a little bit about how the two things that are currently going on, the annexation proposal with North Salt Lake and the subdivision proposal with Swanner property, both of which are happening in real time, how that fits into this?
Let me go back to the map of this just so you guys can see. There, it's kind of small, but so these developments and proposals obviously take up a really big piece of the project area. So it's kind of something we've been working with city staff on.
We're gonna put the houses.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
So these hopefully these projects will be impacted by our plan. It kind of depends how far along in the development process these plans get before our plan is adopted, basically. So we can put in tools for conservation for the city to go in and purchase property or purchase development rights. We can also go the route of putting in policies and strategies to mitigate impacts of these developments to the surrounding habitats, such as lighting ordinances, sound ordinances, pavement, building materials, even landscape materials. But it is happening right alongside parallel with these developments. It's true. And that's been a little bit of a challenge for sure. I don't know, Megan, do you have anything to add to that?
No, Olivia, I think you hit it. I think that is one of the difficult parts of this process, is that the development submittal for the Swanner property went in shortly after we started the project. And they're not really asking for a change in zoning. They're kind of abiding by what's in place now in regards to policy and regulation. So that one's a little bit harder to change. The city has a little bit more, I don't want to say play, but a little bit more of a seat at the table for bargaining and using some of the tools that we come up with in this plan for something that's coming through as maybe an annexation, or maybe something that's trying to change zoning. But needless to say, I think that the tools that we're looking at, and Olivia had shown a slide earlier on about some of the policies that, we're taking a look at for the area. Needless to say that all of those, once they are in place in the plan, any future development would have to abide by it. But we're trying to coordinate as much as we can with the Swanner property, with the property owners, and the city staff on those submittals.
Terry, I see your hand went back up.
I'm going to type something in the chat, but the question is, with the Swanner property and with the inland port, there's an opportunity for understanding what the inputs could be. So Swanner, for example, will develop 6 million acre feet, which gives us 184 docks per million feet, which gives us 1,100 diesel trucks coming in there over the next so many years. So these are inputs that are measurable, and perhaps your report should begin to look at that, because again, air quality to me, following this for so many years, is the most important problem in the area. But I'm going to type something into the chat.
Okay, great, thank you.
What happened to the chat?
Well, very good. Thank you very much for that very informative presentation. That was neat.
Lots of info. So yeah, thank you. Thank you again for having us. And I will, I've actually got the link to the city website now. So if you scroll to the bottom of this web page, there's a few different drop downs, and one of them is for the existing conditions report. So
you're not sharing your screen right now.
oh, nope, I just dropped the link.
Oh, okay, I see it now. Okay, thank you. Cool.
Hey, great. Thank you again.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Olivia then? No? Okay, well, next on the agenda, we're down to a board report and open public comment. As far as the board, we're still lacking people to be on our board. We have openings for chair and treasurer and some other things. So keep that in mind if you want to help us fill out our entire board. I think I'll let Dorothy take a moment to share a story or experience that she had just recently. You're on mute. Oh, there she is.
So I'm sorry that Sharon and I are here together, so we're sitting here going back and forth, and sometimes I don't always notice if we're muted or not. So
what do you
please
want?
forgive us here.
So what do you want? Do you have something over
So
here?
just three very short comments here of things that have happened that you should be aware of. One is that Salt Lake City's mosquito abatement district and other mosquito abatement districts have to apply for a special permit to do aerial spraying your water lands, and there was a public hearing for that. It was held in our area on Monday. And it did not go particularly, I'll just say it didn't go well. It didn't go well. And the director of the Division of Environmental Services apologized that it didn't go more smoothly and has decided to hold it a new public hearing. First time I've ever seen that ever happen. Is she said, we're going to do a do-over on it. So I will, we'll be sending out information about that public hearing. It will be online, but it's right here in our neighborhood there where Human Services meets. That's where they have their boardroom. And I mean, anybody who has questions about issues regarding the use of pesticides in the area and how it affects people and so forth, that's been very controversial. This would be a really good one to go to. And I think the director really wants to make sure that people have all their questions answered. So we'll send that out. The second thing that has happened is there was another public hearing with the Point of the Mountain Commission. These are the people who are developing the old prison site. There's a controversy going on there about how much of the old prison site should be maintained as historical structures in that area. And one of the biggest points of contention was that the prison chapel that was built by donations from the public under Governor Clyde and was built by the prisoners is slated to be destroyed so that a road could be put through. So there was a hearing last week urging that chapel be maintained. And so if any of you are interested in weighing in on that, and listen, I think that's another one that you might want to be interested in following up. Since a lot of the issues about what's the purpose of a prison are also part of what the new prison will be addressing. So those are the two things I just wanted people to know about so they can, and we'll put something in the minutes.
Okay.
And know that our minutes are all up to date now and are going to be even more up to date in the future so that people can get a hold of that.
Okay, that was 2 of your 3 items. Is that all? Okay. Why don't we open it up if there's any open public forum. We're not all together physically, but in this setting, we can all raise our hands or talk or share information among each other. Open forum right now. Oh, okay. Well, very good. Quiet room tonight. Thank you so much for joining with us and learning some more important information about our community and what's going on here. Let's see on the announcements at the very bottom of the agenda. Oh, Denise, take over or say something.
Yeah, I had a question because I know I thought the developer was going to be, for the Swanner property, was going to be doing something tonight also. And I know he has a meeting with the Planning Commission coming up. How are we ever going to get together with him before he goes to the Planning Commission? We're running out of time.
Yeah, Denise, so earlier I had mentioned that we're in contact with Patrick. Patrick, I know you're here. I saw you on mute. So if you wanted to join in, we're just waiting to hear on some dates that work for them. So Patrick, I'll let you speak if you'd like.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Allison. And we are going to propose by hopefully weeks in this week, some dates and times next week that might work. We are waiting for some information to come back from an environmental consultant as well as others just to address and have some, I guess, some real meat to the conversation and a follow up to some of the questions we were asked in our last presentation. And so those things just take a little time, but we will, and we promise to have a meeting prior to the 23rd meeting, which we're on the agenda for. So I hope to know by Friday at the latest, and I'll propose a couple different dates and times that work next week, hopefully for all.
So is it going to be a Zoom meeting, or are we going to meet someplace, or?
Yeah.
I would probably propose a Zoom meeting, but Allison, I'll defer to you.
So Denise and Chris, feel free to speak up if I'm speaking out of turn or out of line, but Chris had offered his home as a meeting place, I think. So if we wanted to get together as a group, we could. I imagine there's probably going to be the ability to set stuff up to be able to bring folks in virtually as well. So we'll definitely get all those details, but it sounds like we'll have some options.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we could give everybody as much notice as possible.
Agreed.
So
Patrick,
Patrick, can you go back on that and I mean, how much
he said
notice
by
are
weeks,
you?
he said by week's end, they hope to have some time, which does give us less than a week's notice, Patrick. So the sooner the better.
That's not a commitment, and that's certainly really short. Is that really the best you can do, Patrick?
Yeah, I understand, but you know, it takes time to get reports and input and some of the things that was asked of the group. You know, those things and studies and things just unfortunately take a little bit of time. And so if I'm going to have, you know, any substance to talk to you about, we need to wait till we get some of those inputs and reports back. So again, those things take time, as we know, to collect data and to produce reports. So
I don't think anybody here wants to deny you that, and we all appreciate all of that effort that you're doing to bring all that together. But we would certainly support you in any effort to get a date with the Planning Commission that is more realistic to your time frame.
yeah. Well, again, we'll look to propose some dates, you know, early next week, or, you know, just give you a couple dates. We're fairly flexible. So as soon as we have a sight line on where we're getting that information back, we'll do so. But it will, you know, obviously be in front of the 23rd meeting. So hopefully we can conduct those next week.
So before the planning committee that you're going to address, you're going to address to the community out there?
Yeah, that's the plan. So the idea is to meet with property owners in the area next week prior to their meeting on the 23rd, which is the following week.
Is that it?
Looks like any other comments or questions from anyone? Well, very good. I think we will adjourn. Our next meetings next month virtually. We're not quite ready for online or in-person meetings just yet, but we're getting closer, it sounds like. Thank you so much for joining with us, and we appreciate your time and all the information that was shared with us. Thank you.